Picture this, it's 1816. A young woman named Mary Shelley falls asleep during a stormy night in Switzerland. In her dream, she sees a pale student kneeling beside a hideous creature he has assembled. The creature stirs with an uneasy, half-vital motion. She wakes in terror. That nightmare became Frankenstein, one of the greatest novels ever written. Was Mary Shelley's dream just random neurons firing in the night? Or did her unconscious mind tap into something profound about humanity's relationship with creation and technology? Tonight, we're going to explore one of the most mysterious experiences every human being shares. Dreams. Every single night, whether you remember it or not, you dream. Your eyes move rapidly beneath closed lids. Your brain becomes as active as when you're awake, sometimes even more so, and you experience vivid scenes, emotions, and narratives that can feel more real than reality itself. For thousands of years, humans have asked the same questions. What are dreams? Why do we have them? Are they messages from the gods, windows into our souls, or simply the brain's way of taking out the trash? Welcome to Logic Over Spirit. I'm your host, and today we're going deep into the world of dreams. We'll examine what cutting-edge neuroscience tells us about the dreaming brain. We'll explore how the world's major religions have interpreted dreams throughout history, and we'll dive into philosophical questions about consciousness, meaning, and reality itself. This isn't just an academic exercise. Understanding dreams means understanding a fundamental part of what it means to be human. It means grappling with the relationship between our conscious and unconscious minds. And it might just change how you think about the third of your life you spend asleep. By the end of this journey, you'll have the tools to decode your own dreams. You'll understand the science behind why we dream, the spiritual interpretations that have guided billions of people, and the philosophical implications that challenge our understanding of consciousness itself. So let's begin where all good investigations start. With the evidence. Chapter 1, The Science of Sleeping Minds. Let's start with what we know for certain. When you fall asleep, your brain doesn't shut down. Far from it. Every night you cycle through different stages of sleep, and it's during REM sleep, that's rapid eye movement sleep, where the most vivid dreaming occurs. Here's what's fascinating. During REM sleep, your brain's visual cortex lights up like a Christmas tree. The emotional centers, particularly the amygdala and the limbic system, become intensely active. Meanwhile, the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for logical thinking and self-awareness, essentially goes offline. This is why dreams can feel so emotionally intense, yet so logically bizarre. You can fly, talk to your deceased grandmother, or suddenly find yourself naked in a classroom, and in the dream, none of this seems strange. But here's the question that has puzzled neuroscientists for decades. Why do we dream at all? The activation synthesis hypothesis, proposed by psychiatrists Alan Hobson and Robert McCarley in 1977, suggests that dreams are essentially random. According to this theory, during REM sleep, the brainstem fires random neural impulses. Your higher brain, trying to make sense of this chaos, weaves these random signals into a narrative. In other words, dreams are just noise, and your brain is doing its best to create a story from that noise. Think of it like this. Imagine someone randomly pressing keys on a piano. Your brain, hearing these random notes, tries to create a melody, a song, a meaning. That's dreaming, according to activation synthesis. But not everyone buys this theory. And here's where it gets really interesting. Modern neuroscience has revealed something profound. The brain doesn't just randomly activate during dreams. There are patterns. Dreams often incorporate recent memories, a phenomenon called memory consolidation. Studies show that people who are deprived of REM sleep have difficulty forming long-term memories. When you dream about studying for an exam or practicing a skill, your brain is actually strengthening those neural pathways. Matthew Walker, a neuroscientist at UC Berkeley, describes sleep as overnight therapy. His research shows that REM sleep helps us process emotional experiences, particularly traumatic ones. The brain replays emotional memories during dreams, but with lower levels of noradrenaline, a stress chemical. This allows us to process the emotional content without the full stress response. It's like exposure therapy happening naturally every night. Then there's the threat simulation theory, proposed by evolutionary psychologist Ante Rath. He argues that dreams evolved as a kind of virtual reality training ground. Our ancestors who could mentally rehearse responses to threats like predators or social conflicts had a survival advantage. This explains why so many dreams involve threatening or challenging situations. Your brain is running simulations, preparing you for real-world dangers. But perhaps the most intriguing recent discovery comes from the work of researchers studying dream content across cultures. While the activation synthesis model predicts random, meaningless content, studies show that dreams have consistent themes. People across all cultures dream about social interactions, conflicts, misfortunes, and successes. These aren't random topics. They're the core concerns of human existence. Neuroscientist Mark Solms has challenged the activation synthesis hypothesis entirely. His research with brain-damaged patients shows that damage to the dopamine systems in the forebrain eliminates dreaming, while damage to the brainstem areas thought to trigger dreams doesn't. This suggests that dreams aren't bottom-up random noise, but top-down motivated simulations generated by our wanting and seeking systems. Here's what this means. Dreams might not be messages from God or prophecies of the future, but they're not meaningless noise either. They're your brain doing essential maintenance work, processing memories, regulating emotions, and perhaps even problem-solving. Einstein famously claimed that his theory of relativity came to him in a dream about cows and electric fences. Dmitri Mendeleev saw the periodic table of elements in a dream. Paul McCartney heard the melody for Yesterday in a dream. Were these just coincidences, random neural firings that happen to be useful? Or does the dreaming brain have access to creative connections that our waking, logical mind suppresses? The scientific answer is nuanced. During dreams, because your prefrontal cortex is less active, your brain makes more unusual associations. Ideas that seem unrelated when you're awake can connect in dreams. This is why many people report solving problems or having creative breakthroughs during or after dreams. It's not magic, it's your brain thinking in a different mode, one less constrained by logic and more open to novel connections. But here's something that should make you pause. If dreams are just your brain processing information, why do they feel so meaningful? Why do some dreams haunt us for years? Why do we wake from certain dreams feeling like we've touched something profound, something true about ourselves or the world? Science can tell us what's happening in the brain during dreams. It can map the neural correlates and identify the biochemical processes. But can it fully explain the subjective experience of dreaming? Can it account for why dreams have been considered sacred and meaningful by every human culture throughout history? To answer that, we need to step beyond the laboratory and into the temple. Chapter 2, Divine Whispers and Sacred Visions. For most of human history, dreams weren't considered random brain activity. They were considered messages from the divine. And this belief shaped civilizations. In ancient Egypt, dreams were taken so seriously that there were professional dream interpreters attached to temples. Pharaohs made decisions about war and peace based on dreams. The Egyptians believed that during sleep, the soul temporarily left the body and traveled to the realm of the gods. Dreams were reported from that journey. This wasn't superstition, isolated to one culture. Let's look at how the three major Abrahamic religions view dreams. In Judaism, dreams play a crucial role throughout the Hebrew Bible. Joseph, the son of Jacob, becomes second in command of Egypt because of his ability to interpret dreams. He correctly interprets Pharaoh's dream about 7 fat cows and 7 lean cows as a prophecy of 7 years of abundance followed by 7 years of famine. The Talmud contains extensive discussions about dreams. One famous passage states, "A dream uninterpreted is like a letter unopened," but Jewish tradition is sophisticated about dreams. It acknowledges that not all dreams are prophetic. Some are just reflections of daily concerns. The key is discernment. Rabbi Hista taught, "A dream not interpreted is like a letter not read." But he also said, "A dream follows the mouth," meaning the interpretation given to a dream can influence its effect on waking life. Christianity inherited this complex view of dreams. The New Testament is filled with significant dreams. Joseph, the husband of Mary, receives divine instructions through dreams for separate times, including the warning to flee to Egypt to escape Herod's massacre. The Magi who visit baby Jesus are warned in a dream not to return to Herod and Pilate's wife. Troubled by a dream, warns her husband to have nothing to do with Jesus. The early Christian theologian, Tertullian wrote, "We define the dream to be an impulse or impression on the soul from the Spirit of God." But like Judaism, Christianity developed a nuanced view. Not all dreams were from God. Some could be from natural causes, some from demons, and some from divine sources. Discernment became crucial. St. Augustine wrote extensively about dreams. He acknowledged their power, but warned against treating all dreams as prophetic. He knew his mother, St. Monica, had prophetic dreams about him. But he also believed that many dreams were simply the mind's nocturnal wanderings. In Islam, dreams hold special significance. The Prophet Muhammad reportedly said, "True dreams are one of the 46 parts of prophethood." Islamic tradition divides dreams into 3 categories. Dreams from Allah, which are true and good. Dreams from one's own self, reflecting desires and concerns. And dreams from Satan, which are meant to cause distress and should be ignored. The Quran itself contains several significant dreams. Abraham dreams of sacrificing his son, and after consulting with his son, he prepares to carry out what he believes is God's command. Only divine intervention prevents the sacrifice. This dream became the basis for the Islamic festival of Al-Eid, but Islam, like Judaism and Christianity, emphasizes interpretation. Not every dream should be taken literally. The Prophet Muhammad advised that if someone has a good dream, they should praise God and share it only with those they love. If they have a bad dream, they should seek refuge in God and tell no one, for it cannot harm them. Eastern religions offer yet another perspective. In Hinduism, dreams can be messages from deities, glimpses of past lives, or experiences of the subtle body traveling during sleep. The Upanishads describe dreams as one of the states of consciousness, along with waking and deep sleep, that the soul experiences. Buddhism has a particularly interesting take. Buddha himself is said to have had significant dreams before his enlightenment, and his mother dreamed of a white elephant entering her womb before his birth. However, Buddhism generally teaches that dreams, like waking experiences, are ultimately illusory. They can reflect the contents of the mind, karmic patterns, and attachments, but they're not ultimately real or separate from the dreamer. In Tibetan Buddhism, there's an advanced practice called dream yoga, where practitioners learn to become lucid in dreams and use that state for spiritual development. The idea is that if you can recognize the illusory nature of dreams while dreaming, you can better recognize the illusory nature of waking life. What's striking across all these traditions is the recognition that dreams matter. They may not all be divine messages, but they're not dismissed as meaningless, static. There's wisdom in dreams, even if that wisdom needs careful interpretation. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist, spent much of his career building a bridge between religious and scientific understandings of dreams. He wrote, "The dream is a little hidden door in the innermost and most secret recesses of the soul." Jung didn't believe dreams were messages from an external God, but he did believe they carried messages from the unconscious, what he sometimes called the objective psyche. For Jung, dreams used symbols and archetypes, universal patterns of human experience, to communicate truths that the conscious mind needed to hear. A dream about a wise old man might represent your inner wisdom. A dream about a shadow figure might represent rejected parts of yourself. Dreams for Jung were the psyche's attempt at self-regulation and wholeness. This brings us to a profound question. When religious traditions speak of dreams as messages from God, and when Jung speaks of messages from the unconscious, are they really describing different things? Or are they using different languages to point at the same mysterious source of meaning that wells up during sleep? The religious person might say that God speaks through the unconscious. The psychologist might say that what we call God is actually a projection of the deep unconscious. The mystic might say that at a certain depth, the distinction disappears, that the ground of the soul and the ground of being are one. What we can say is this: the religious approach to dreams recognizes something that pure reductionist neuroscience sometimes misses. Dreams feel meaningful because they are meaningful, at least to the dreamer. Whether that meaning comes from neurons or from the divine, or from both, the subjective experience of meaning is real and consequential. People make life-changing decisions based on dreams. They find comfort in dreams of deceased loved ones. They discover vocations, resolve conflicts, and achieve insights through dreams. To dismiss all of this as mere noise seems to miss something essential about human experience. But we're not done yet, because there's a third lens through which to view dreams. One that asks even deeper questions about the nature of reality itself. Chapter 3, The Reality Question: How do you know you're not dreaming right now? It's a question that sounds like a joke, something to amuse philosophy students over coffee, but it's actually one of the most profound questions in philosophy. And it cuts to the heart of what dreams reveal about consciousness and reality. The ancient Chinese philosopher Zhuangzi tells a famous story. Once upon a time, Zhuangzi dreamed I was a butterfly, fluttering here and there. I was conscious only of my happiness as a butterfly, unaware that I was Zhuangzi. Soon I awaked, and there I was, veritably myself again. Now I do not know whether I was then a man dreaming I was a butterfly, or whether I am now a butterfly dreaming I am a man. This isn't just a cute parable, it's a serious epistemological problem. When you're dreaming, you don't usually know you're dreaming. The dream world feels completely real. You have thoughts, emotions, sensory experiences, all convincingly similar to waking life. Only when you wake up do you realize, oh, that was just a dream. But here's the disturbing question. What if waking life is just another dream? What if you'll eventually wake up from this life into some higher reality and realize that everything you thought was real was just another dream? The French philosopher René Descartes wrestled with exactly this problem in the 17th century. In his Meditations, he writes, "How often have I dreamt that I was in these familiar circumstances, that I was dressed and seated by the fire, when I was in fact lying undressed in bed. At the moment it seems to me that I am not looking at this paper with my eyes closed, that this head which I move is not heavy with sleep, that it is by design and deliberate intent that I stretch out this hand and perceive it. But there are never any sure signs by means of which being awake can be distinguished from being asleep." Descartes eventually gets out of this problem by arguing that a benevolent God wouldn't deceive him about the basic nature of reality, but not everyone finds that solution satisfying. And the problem Descartes identified remains. What is the fundamental difference between dreaming and waking? Modern philosophy has several approaches to this question. One camp, the realists, argues that there is an obvious difference. In waking life, there's a consistent external world that multiple people can perceive and agree on. If we both look at this table, we both see the same table. Dreams, on the other hand, are private, inconsistent, and don't follow the laws of physics. But phenomenologists, philosophers who study consciousness itself, point out that from a first-person perspective, the subjective quality of dreaming can be indistinguishable from waking. The philosopher Thomas Metzinger argues that both dreaming and waking involve the brain creating models of reality. The difference is that in waking life, the model is constrained by sensory input from the external world, while in dreams, the model runs free, unconstrained by external reality. This leads to a startling conclusion. You never directly experience reality. What you experience is always your brain's model of reality. Whether you're awake or asleep, you're living inside a simulation created by your own nervous system. The only difference is whether that simulation is being updated by sensory data from an external world. As Metzinger puts it, no one has ever consciously experienced anything other than the content of their own consciousness. The startling conclusion is that the world you experience is really a construction taking place inside your head. If that sounds like the plot of The Matrix, you're not wrong. The Matrix is really a modern retelling of ancient philosophical problems about the nature of reality. Problems that dreams have always forced us to confront. But let's push even deeper. What is consciousness itself, and what do dreams tell us about it? One of the biggest mysteries in philosophy and neuroscience is the hard problem of consciousness. Why is there subjective experience at all? Why doesn't all this information processing in the brain happen in the dark, without any inner experience? And why does that experience feel like something? Dreams make this mystery even more puzzling. During dreams, you have conscious experiences, qualia, the subjective qualities of experience, without any external stimuli. You see colors, feel emotions, hear sounds, all generated entirely by your own brain. This demonstrates that consciousness doesn't require external reality. It can generate rich, complex experiences, entirely on its own. Some philosophers argue that this reveals consciousness as fundamental, not dependent on the external world at all. Others see it as evidence that consciousness is purely a brain process, since it can occur when cut off from sensory input. But dreams also demonstrate something else: the continuity of self across states of consciousness. When you dream, you usually have some sense of being you, even if in the dream you are doing impossible things. And when you wake up, you recognize that the dreamer and the waker are the same person, even though they were in completely different states of consciousness. The philosopher John Locke argued that personal identity is based on memory and consciousness. You are you because you remember being you. Dreams complicate this. Sometimes in dreams, you're not quite yourself. Sometimes you have false memories. Sometimes you're multiple people at once. Yet somehow, when you wake up, you integrate all of that into your sense of self. There's another philosophical tradition worth considering. One that says the distinction between dreaming and waking, between real and unreal, is itself a kind of delusion. In Advaita Vedanta, a school of Hindu philosophy, the ultimate reality is pure consciousness, Brahman. The world we experience, whether in waking or dreaming, is Maya, not exactly illusion, but more like appearance or manifestation. Both waking and dreaming are states of consciousness arising in awareness, but neither is ultimately real in the deepest sense. The sage Ramana Maharshi taught, the world is perceived in the waking state. It is not perceived in sleep, hence, it is as real as the experience of dreams. From the standpoint of the ultimate reality, pure awareness itself, both waking and dreaming are temporary states, clouds passing through the unchanging sky of consciousness. Buddhism offers a similar perspective. The Heart Sutra, one of the most important Buddhist texts, says that form is emptiness, and emptiness is form. Everything we experience, awake or dreaming, is empty of inherent existence. It arises from causes and conditions, and dissolves back into emptiness. To realize this deeply is to wake up in a much more fundamental sense than just opening your eyes in the morning. These Eastern philosophical traditions suggest that the question isn't which is real, dreaming or waking, but rather, what is the nature of consciousness itself that makes both possible? This brings us back to the original question: are dreams random noise or deeper messages? The philosophical answer might be that the question itself is too simple. Dreams aren't random in the sense of being meaningless, chaos. They emerge from the same consciousness that creates your waking experience. They follow patterns, use symbols, and create meaning. But they're also not messages from an external source in a simple sense. They're more like what the poet, Rainer Maria Rilke called, windows into the darkness from which we came, and to which we shall return. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche wrote, In our sleep and in our dreams, we pass through the whole thought of earlier humanity. What he means is that in dreams, we access older, more primitive modes of thinking and experiencing. We encounter the mythic, the symbolic, the pre-rational, and this has value precisely because our waking consciousness, with all its logic and rationality, isn't the whole story of who we are. So from a philosophical perspective, dreams are neither purely random nor purely meaningful in some predetermined way. They're creative productions of consciousness itself, revealing both the constructed nature of all our experiences and the deep structures of meaning that shape human existence. But understanding dreams intellectually is one thing. Actually working with them, interpreting them, learning from them, is another. So how do we actually decode our dreams? Chapter 4, Making Sense of the Night. So how do we actually work with dreams? If they're not pure noise but not divine telegrams either, what do we do with them? Here's the key insight. The meaning of a dream isn't something you discover like a fossil in the ground. It's something you create through interpretation. Dreams speak in symbols and metaphors, and different frameworks reveal different dimensions of meaning. Sigmund Freud called dreams the royal road to the unconscious. He believed dreams expressed repressed desires using symbolic disguises. That dream about climbing a mountain might represent sexual desire. That dream about losing teeth might reveal anxiety about power or control. Critics say Freud saw sex everywhere, but he got something crucial right. Dreams do use symbolic language, and they do require interpretation, not just literal reading. Carl Jung offered a different view. For Jung, dreams weren't wish fulfillments, but compensations. They showed you what your conscious mind was missing. To rational in waking life, your dreams might be wild and chaotic, restoring balance. Jung also emphasized archetypes, universal symbols, like the wise old man or the shadow that connect us to deep patterns of human experience. Modern cognitive approaches see dreams as reflections of current concerns and emotional processing. That dream about showing up unprepared for an exam, it's probably about performance anxiety in your waking life, not a prophecy. Here's a practical framework you can use tonight. First, keep a dream journal. Record dreams immediately upon waking, before they fade. Second, identify key symbols and emotions. What stood out? What felt intense? Third, make personal associations. What does this symbol mean to you specifically? Your associations matter more than any dream dictionary. Fourth, consider your life context. What are you worried about or hoping for right now? And finally, look for patterns over time. Recurring themes matter more than single dreams, but here's crucial advice. Not every dream needs deep interpretation. Sometimes a dream is just your brain consolidating memories or processing random stimuli. Be open to meaning, but not obsessed with finding it. Be curious, but not superstitious. And remember, your dreams are yours. No expert has more authority over their meaning than you do. Psychologist James Hillman warned that too much interpretation can kill a dream. Sometimes the best approach is to simply hold a dream, return to it, let it work on you without rushing to translate it into practical action. Work with your dreams lightly. Be serious, but not grim. Honor them without being enslaved by them. Because ultimately, paying attention to dreams is about paying attention to the deeper dimensions of yourself. Chapter 5, The Answer. So here we are. Are dreams random noise or deeper messages? After exploring neuroscience, religion, and philosophy, what's the answer? The answer is that it's the wrong question. Dreams are neither pure noise nor direct messages. There's something more interesting. They're the natural creativity of consciousness itself. Let's return to Mary Shelley's nightmare that became Frankenstein. You can explain it 3 ways, and all 3 are true. Neuroscience says her brain was consolidating memories and making creative connections. Religion, or spirituality, might say, her creative genius was working through her unconscious. Philosophy says, the dream revealed something true about humanity in the age of science and technology. None of these explanations cancels out the others. They're complementary perspectives on the same reality. The neurochemical processes don't negate the meaning. The meaning doesn't require supernatural intervention. The philosophical insight doesn't contradict the brain science. They're all partial truths about something bigger than any single viewpoint can capture. This is what matters. Dreams demonstrate something profound about human existence. In your small, strange, nightly dreams, you encounter the biggest questions. What is consciousness? What is reality? How does meaning arise? What is the self? Dreams show us that we're more than our conscious ego. Most of what makes you you is happening beneath awareness, and dreams are one of the few windows into that deeper dimension. The poet, Rumi, wrote, "You are not a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in a drop." Dreams prove this. Every night, your mind creates elaborate worlds, generates emotions, solves problems, and offers insights. All of this happens naturally, without effort. Modern culture has largely forgotten the value of dreams. We're sleep-deprived, dismissive of dreams as nonsense, obsessed with productivity and the waking world. But to ignore dreams is to ignore most of yourself. It's like trying to understand an iceberg by only looking at the tip above water. Philosopher Ludwig Wittgenstein said, "If people never did silly things, nothing intelligent would ever get done." Dreams are the mind's way of doing silly things, making impossible connections, violating logic, and that's precisely what makes them valuable. In dreams, you can die and be reborn. You can fly or fall. You can meet your younger self or speak with the dead. This isn't randomness, it's play. It's the psyche trying on different possibilities. Carl Jung wrote near the end of his life that people become neurotic when confined within too narrow a spiritual horizon. When their life lacks sufficient content and meaning. Dreams are one of the primary ways we develop into more spacious personalities. They break down the walls of our narrow egos and challenge our assumptions about reality. To decode dreams is to decode yourself. To respect dreams is to respect the full depth of human consciousness. To work with dreams is to engage in one of the most ancient and most personal forms of self-discovery. So tonight, when you lie down to sleep, remember this: you're not just shutting down, you're embarking on a journey into your own dreaming mind. What you find there will be uniquely yours, neither pure noise nor a predetermined message, but something far more valuable. A conversation between the conscious and unconscious parts of yourself. A bridge between logic and mystery. A reminder that being human means living in multiple worlds at once. Conclusion. We've journeyed through the science labs where researchers mapped the dreaming brain. We've visited temples and scriptures where dreams were considered divine messages. We've explored philosophical questions about consciousness and reality. And we've learned practical ways to work with our own dreams. The conclusion. Dreams matter, not because they predict the future or because they're messages from God, necessarily, but because they're expressions of who you are at the deepest level. They're your brain doing essential work, your psyche seeking balance, your unconscious offering gifts to consciousness. Here's my challenge to you. Starting tonight, keep a dream journal for just 1 week. When you wake up, before checking your phone, before doing anything else, write down what you remember. Don't judge it, don't interpret it yet, just record it. After a week, look back and notice patterns. Notice emotions. Notice what your dreaming mind keeps returning to. You might be surprised by what you discover. You might find creative solutions to problems. You might process emotions you didn't know you were carrying. You might simply get to know yourself better. Whatever happens, you'll be honoring a part of your existence that deserves attention. If this exploration has sparked your curiosity, if you want to dive deeper into questions about consciousness, meaning, and the nature of reality, subscribe to Logic Over Spirit. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next investigation. We'll continue exploring the borderlands between science and mystery, between logic and spirit, always searching for truth wherever it leads. Leave a comment below. Tell me about a dream that changed your life, puzzled you, or revealed something important. What's your relationship with your dreams? Do you pay attention to them or dismiss them? I read every comment, and I'm genuinely curious about your experiences. And if you found value in this video, share it with someone who loves thinking deeply about consciousness and the mysteries of human existence. These conversations matter. They expand our understanding of what it means to be human. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the dreaming mind. Until next time, sleep well, dream deeply, and remember that the frontier of human understanding isn't just out there in the cosmos. It's right here, inside your own consciousness, every single night. This is Logic Over Spirit, reminding you that the most profound mysteries aren't either-or propositions. They're both invitations to see more fully, think more deeply, and live more consciously. Sweet dreams. Thank you for watching.